rain makes everything look cleaner until you're the one driving through it. That's what I remember most about that night. The way the road shined like it had been freshly painted, the way streetlights bled long orange streaks across the windshield, and the way my headlights seemed too weak to push back the dark beyond the shoulder. It was late. Not I should be in bed late. More like the kind of late where the world stops belonging to normal people. My phone said 12:47 a.m. I'd been out longer than planned, and I didn't have a real excuse for it either. Just a long day, a longer week, and a drive I'd done 100 times before, State Route 17, cutting through the wooded stretch outside town. A shortcut if you didn't mind the emptiness. The radio was the only company I had. I remember turning it down at first because the rain was loud, rattling against the roof and hissing under the tires. But then a voice came through the static, calm and official, like it was reading weather. Repeat, this is an emergency advisory. An inmate has escaped during transport from Ridgeview State Psychiatric Facility. The prisoner was under armed guard and is considered extremely dangerous. If you see anyone matching the description, male, tall, wearing a light hospital uniform or restraints, do not approach. Call 911 immediately. A photo was supposedly posted online. The anchor kept repeating the name like it mattered. I didn't catch it. The only thing I remember is the phrase, under armed guard. I laughed nervously and told myself it didn't matter. Ridgeview was miles away. There was no way the guy would end up on this random road on this random night in my random life. Then lightning flashed. And in that white-blue split second, I saw someone standing on the shoulder. At first, I thought it was a signpost or a deer or a trash bag caught on a branch. But the next flash showed a person, still, upright, facing the road like they were waiting for me specifically. I slowed without thinking. My hands tightened on the wheel, my chest pinching like it always does when instinct overrides logic. The sane thing would have been to keep driving. The news was literally warning me about a dangerous escapee. It wasn't even subtle, but the person didn't look like a prisoner. They looked lost. A figure in a soaked hoodie, shoulders hunched against the rain, one hand raised half-heartedly like they weren't sure I'd stop. My headlights lit them just enough for details. Average height, slim build. They weren't wearing bright colors or waving dramatically. No screaming, no frantic movement, and just standing there like a ghost in the rain. I pulled over anyway. The passenger door opened and a cold breath of air rushed inside. Rain sprayed in. A man got in, older than I expected. Not elderly, but not young either. Maybe late 30s or early 40s. Pale skin that looked almost gray in the dashboard glow. He wore a dark hoodie, jeans, sneakers absolutely soaked through. He smelled like wet dirt. Not sweat, not alcohol. Earth. You okay? I asked. His voice was soft when he answered. Too soft for a storm. Thank you, he said. I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. You're gonna freeze out there. Where are you heading? He hesitated. Then he said an address like he'd memorized it once and never said it out loud again. 224 Old Mill Road. My stomach dropped a fraction. Old Mill Road wasn't impossible, but it wasn't normal either. It curved behind the ridge line, past the abandoned gas station, back into the dead part of town nobody drove through unless they had to. I glanced at him, then back at the road. Yeah, I said. Okay. He didn't say much after that, but he didn't feel hostile either. If anything, he felt exhausted. Not physically, something deeper. The radio continued low in the background, repeating the same emergency warning. The man kept his head down like the voice bothered him. Finally, he spoke. Can you turn that off? His tone wasn't rude, but it wasn't a request either. I reached over and turned the volume down until the voice became faint like it was trapped underwater. The man exhaled slowly, like I'd relieved pressure inside his skull. "Rough night?" I asked, trying to keep things casual, to remind myself this was a person, not a threat. He stared out the window, watching the trees blur by. "I don't really have nights," he said. That made me laugh a little, but it came out wrong, like a cough. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. He just shifted slightly, and I saw something white on his wrist, a hospital bracelet. It was unmistakable, plastic band, printed label, the kind you get in ER intake. My pulse instantly jumped. The radio warning stabbed through my memory again. Prisoner, escape, psychiatric facility, under armed guard. I forced myself not to overreact, but my fingers tightened on the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. "Hey," I said carefully. You all right?" His eyes moved toward me slowly. When they met mine, I felt the strange sensation of looking into a room that had been empty for years. "I'm fine," he said. "It's not what you think." That sentence made it worse. "Because people only say that when it is exactly what you think." I didn't ask him about it. I didn't want to. The moment I acknowledged it, the car stopped being a car and started being a situation, and so I did the thing men do when we're terrified, but too proud to show it. I acted normal. A few miles later, I saw a sign for a 24-hour convenience store. One of those lonely places with flickering fluorescent lights and a huge lot that's always half empty. I pointed. "You want me to stop? Get a coffee or something? Warm up?" The man's head snapped slightly toward the window like the store sign had startled him. He didn't answer right away, and then he said, "Yes," so I pulled in. The rain got heavier. My wipers were working overtime as I parked by the entrance. I told him I'd be right back, and he nodded without looking at me. Inside, it was bright and warm and smelled like burnt hot dogs. The cashier barely looked up from her phone. I grabbed coffee, bottled water, something quick, and while I waited at the counter, I glanced at the TV hanging above the scratch-off tickets. Local news was playing, and there it was. A blurry photo. A man in a white hospital uniform, hands cuffed, head turned away from the camera. The anchor's voice said, "Escaped during transfer from Ridgeview State Psychiatric Facility. Last seen near County Route." My throat went dry. The photo wasn't clear, but the build looked familiar. I turned slightly toward the window, toward my car in the rain. But my passenger was still inside. Still there. I could see a silhouette in the seat. Then the bell above the door chimed. Someone else walked in. A woman. She was drenched like she'd been swimming, dark hair plastered to her face, eyes wide, frantic. She looked around like she was searching for a person. She spotted me and rushed over. "Are you driving a black sedan?" she asked, breathless. "Yes." "There's a man in your car," she said. "He got in with you, right?" My heart thumped once, hard. "Yeah." Her voice lowered. "Please don't take him where he asked." I stared at her. "Who are you?" She swallowed. "Just, please." I saw him on the road. I saw him stand there. He does that. People stop. "That's not... He doesn't belong in your car," she insisted. "He doesn't belong anywhere." The cashier finally looked up. "Hey, ma'am." The woman turned, almost begging now. "Listen to me. He isn't going to let you go." A second later, she slammed her hand on the counter and said, "Call the police, right now." And then she ran out into the rain. I stood there frozen, coffee shaking slightly in my grip. For a second, I told myself it was a prank, a weird addict, a disturbed person. But then I heard the radio in my car raise volume on its own. Even through the glass, the words reached me. "Do not approach. Call 911 immediately. Under armed guard." I didn't remember leaving it on. I walked outside. The rain hit me hard, cold needles. I hurried to the driver's side, and as I rounded the hood, I saw the passenger door open. My hitchhiker stepped out slowly like he'd been waiting for me. His hoodie was darker now, soaked through. He looked directly at me with those empty eyes. Then he looked past me, toward the store, toward the direction the woman ran, and he smiled. Not happy, not friendly, just pleased. "You talked to her," he said. My stomach sank. No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." He tilted his head slightly. "It's okay. People always do." My mouth moved without permission. "Who are you?" He raised his left wrist and the hospital bracelet flashed in the lightning. The name on it wasn't his. It looked old, like it had been worn too long. The plastic was yellowed, and the printed letters were partially smeared by water, like they'd been washed out again and again over time. His voice dropped. "Take me to the address." I opened my mouth to speak, to refuse, to yell something, and then I heard a tapping sound coming from inside the car. I leaned forward, peering through the passenger window, and my blood turned to ice. There was someone in the back seat, a shape behind my headrest, a face inches from the glass, looking out, watching. I stumbled backward so hard I slipped on the wet pavement. The hitchhiker didn't react, didn't even look surprised. He just stared at me calmly, like the situation had been inevitable. "You picked up the wrong one," he said softly. "Now you have both." My hands trembled as I fumbled my phone out of my pocket. No service. Of course, the woman was gone. The store lights buzzed. The cashier watched through the window like she wanted no part of this. The hitchhiker stepped closer. "Drive," he said. And I did, because the thing in the back seat moved. Not much, just enough to prove it was real. I pulled out of the lot with my heart hammering, my body running purely on survival. The hitchhiker sat in the passenger seat again without a sound. The shape behind me stayed still, like it was saving its energy. The road back to Old Mill felt longer than it should have, and the trees seemed thicker, the rain heavier. Even the darkness felt crowded. The hitchhiker spoke softly. "Do you know why places like Ridgeview exist?" I didn't answer. "They keep things from wandering," he said. "They lock doors and call it safety. They don't understand that some doors were never meant to open again." My eyes flicked to his bracelet. "What is that?" I whispered. He looked at it like he'd forgotten it was there. Then he said the sentence that made my stomach twist into a knot. "It isn't mine." As we neared Old Mill Road, the radio suddenly cut out. The car's interior went silent except for the wipers. Then a voice came through the speakers anyway. Not from a station and not from the news. It sounded like someone whispering directly into my ear. "Turn around." I slammed the brakes so hard the seatbelt bit into my chest. The hitchhiker didn't flinch. The shape behind me leaned forward. I screamed, and the last thing I remember is headlights in my mirror. A truck, high beams flashing. A man behind the wheel waving wildly, mouth open like he was shouting. Then, nothing. I didn't know any of this the night it happened. Because this isn't my story. Not exactly. I'm Detective Aaron Klein, and the man you've been listening to, the driver, has been missing for 11 days. We recovered his vehicle on the side of Route 17, abandoned, engine cold, doors unlocked. No body, no blood, just a single object on the passenger seat. A hospital bracelet, printed with a name from a patient record dated 1998. A man declared dead in a flood that same year. And when we pulled traffic cameras, store footage, dash cams, and reconstructed the timeline from the driver's phone texts, we found something worse. The driver never picked up one passenger that night, and he picked up two. But only one of them ever appeared on camera. And the one that didn't was sitting in the back seat, right behind him, the entire time.